There's one more setting within the Photos app that we haven't explored because it's a little bit of a deeper setting. So if we go into one of the photographs that I took, just by clicking on the Photos app, and then you'll click the sliders again, so the bottom right, and you'll click the dial, bottom right, next, well, it's the second to the right here. And remember, we saw the light color and then the black and white options there at the bottom. If you notice these, it's like a V in a circle. There's 3 of them on the right hand side. If you click any one of those, you get a whole bunch of more options. So when you click on the one for light, you get brilliance, exposure, highlights, shadows, brightness, contrast, and black point. Now things get pretty complicated pretty fast here. So they kind of bury these features within this settings here, so not a lot of people maybe dig around in this stuff. But this is what we're here to do. So now I should say that the best way that you're going to learn all this is just to play around with it and see what things do. So I just clicked on brilliance and I'll move it around and you kind of see what the effect is. I could try to explain in words what's happening, but really you're just going to get a better understanding if you just play around with it. Now exposure is pretty easy to explain. Now that's just simply the amount of, in the day of film photography, it was the amount of light that was shining through, or the length of time the light was shining through the enlarger on the film that you were processing. So there's the exposure, and maybe I'll boost that up. Now it's pretty easy to start messing with these things and then end up with a really crazy photograph. This is highlights. So look at the lightest parts of the picture and what it's doing. You're not looking at the shadows, but really where the brightest parts are, and you'll see that it makes some modifications. And we'll go to shadows, and here you'll look at the darkest parts of the picture. And then it really darkens things up. And then we'll go overall brightness. So you can look, and I'll just try to make it as extreme as I can just to show you that you really can get some pretty crazy effects here. And I'll boost the contrast. It's looking crazier and crazier. The trick with this stuff is actually, I guess there's 2 ways of thinking about it. Let's call that done. Now you can make a photograph as crazy as you want, and this is pretty wild looking. It doesn't quite look like a tree anymore, in fact. So you can, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can try to make the adjustments as subtle as you want, as possible. And I think that's probably the best way. It takes the more finesse. So the best adjustments are the ones that you really can't even tell happened. When you know, it's its own thing when you want to make it as crazy as possible. That might be fun, but it's I don't know. Maybe an analogy would be like wearing makeup or something. That if you can't even tell someone has makeup on, it's probably the most effective. And then if you're got tons of makeup on your face, like Marilyn Manson or some like Insane Clown Posse or something, then it's just a whole different thing. I mean, it's both still makeup, but it's very different. And so maybe that's an analogy to what we're doing here. You can make some really extreme effects, but you could also do some very subtle things. I should say subtle effects that help sometimes are the contrast. Boosting the contrast a little bit can help your image pop. Just notice how contrast is off here, boosting it a little bit, and now it's an extreme boost right there. But oftentimes it kind of creates a more compelling image to boost the contrast. You could just explore that. And let's go to another one in the light setting. Just maybe one more. That was okay, so actually if you hit the photograph itself, you can go back and forth between original and then your edited version. So that's a nice feature if you want to see how your effects are coming along. And maybe I'll do one more shadows. I don't want to darken these shadows up, so I'll go and darken them up like that. Click done, and now, so I come up with that. I think it looks a little bit better than what we had before, and it's just from adjusting a few of these features within the sub-menu of the again, the sliders, and then the dial, and then the sub-menu within the light settings. So next we'll take a look at color, and as you can guess, it'll have more settings as well.